السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be upon His final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He deserves to be praised, the praiseworthy. In our last class, we have spoken about how to purify physical impurities. طيب. And we gave some principles over there. Today, inshallah, we'll be talking about a very important section. This section is considered the most problematic section for two groups of people: muftis and husbands. Reason why is that every single woman, 99% of the women in the cases, they will go through this matter, which is the monthly cycle. And there are so many rulings that are tied to this monthly cycle, and so many things can happen. That is why this section is extremely important for husbands to be aware of, and for the sisters to take note of these matters. Not only for her to know how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also if she's aware of the different sections of the different matters mentioned in the monthly cycle, she'll be able to understand how to ask the question. طيب. Or for example, if the Shaykh says, can you differentiate between the types of blood? Do you know is it like normal blood or is it like the period blood? She will be aware of what the matter is. What am I talking about? What the Shaykh is talking about. طيب. So this section is extremely important. The rulings are straightforward, but applying them, sometimes it's very challenging. Because it all depends on the description of the person asking the question. And sometimes the person asking the question is not fully aware of the matter. So it causes a confusion for the mufti, it causes a confusion for the husband. And subhanallah, this matter, if you look at the books of fiqh, many of the jurists at the start of this section, this is what they have to say, that this section, is the most problematic section not because of the rulings itself, because of, when people ask questions, they are unaware, or they miss out some matters, and they ask questions that are incomplete. So the questions themselves, they cause confusion. You might be saying, what is he talking about? Inshallah, you'll come to know. You will come to know. So inshallah, you have the intention of learning this section so that at least you preserve the rulings of Islam. The more people who are aware of this, the end of the day, we are studying what? The rulings of Islam. These are the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a very important section. It affects the woman's worship. It affects her fasting. It affects her umrah. So many matters are related to this. It affects her relationship with the husband. It affects talaq. It affects so many things. So perfecting this section is extremely important. طيب. The menses, the hayd, what is it? It is a naturally occurring blood. طيب. A naturally occurring blood exiting a healthy woman at specific times, not due to childbirth. So it is a naturally occurring blood. So it's not a wound, it's not bleeding, it's a naturally occurring blood exiting a healthy woman at specific times. So it has specific times. That's why when we talk about hayd, we'll talk about the norm. Most women, they have a norm. They know that this part of the month, the period starts. This part of the month, the period ends. This is very important later on. So that if an issue occurs, if istihada happens, she has a norm. She knows her norm. This is very important. طيب. And then at the end they said, not due to childbirth. Why? Because bleeding or blood exiting a woman due to childbirth is postpartum bleeding, nifas. The rulings are similar, but they differ in certain things. طيب. So when is the starting age for hayd? There is no starting age. SubhanAllah, some women at 8, 9 even, at young as 9, and some they might at 15 maybe or even more. The norm is 12, 13, 14, this is the norm. طيب. Is there an end age for menstruation? There is no end age. Women differ. As long as this blood occurs on a monthly time with its normal characteristics, it's considered hayd. It is considered hayd. طيب. The next matter. A woman who is pregnant, can she get hayd? Or is it impossible? Of course, the Hanbali madhab said that any blood that occurs while a woman is pregnant cannot be hayd. It cannot be hayd. So it will have no rulings. So if a woman experiences a bleeding or she sees blood, even though she's pregnant, they say this blood has no rulings. It does not affect her worship, it does not affect her fasting. She can fast, she can pray, طيب, she can do umrah, there are no issues. Now, the Shafi'i and Maliki madhab said actually a period may occur during pregnancy. Now, in the medical side, this might happen, but it's rare. It is rare. Usually if blood occurs during pregnancy, chances are it's blood that has no ruling. It's not hayd. It is not hayd. Unless, she knows otherwise. Anyway, the doctor tells her, no, this is hayd blood. This is part of your menstrual period. It's abnormal, but it happens. Yes, then it takes the rulings of hayd. Otherwise, it's considered normal blood. It has no rulings. What is the norm of the period for women? The norm is 6 to 7 days. 6 to 7 days. And how long does a period last? The period lasts from, subhanAllah, some people have it for 1 day, from 1 to 15 days. More than 15, definitely it is istihada, abnormal bleeding. It does not have the rulings of hayd. So from 1 to 15 days. More than 15, it is impossible. Why is it? Why is that so? They said, how can a woman have most of the, if we say that most of the month is hayd, imagine that most of the year she's not praying. Most of the year she cannot fast. So they said this is impossible. Usually it's impossible. Something's wrong. Aslan, if it reaches 15 or more than 15, something is wrong. She should go and check herself. There might be hormonal imbalances, there might be an issue. More than 15, definitely it's not hayd. It is not hayd. طيب. Of the problematic matters in hayd many of the questions are regarding this. Sheikh, we've seen something abnormal happened. My period's supposed to start today, but I did not see blood. I see brownish or yellowish discharge. It's not blood, but it's the time of the period. I have the pain of the period. It's supposed to start today, but instead of blood, I'm getting this yellowish, brownish discharge. Is this considered hayd or not? Do I leave prayer or not? If it's at the time, they said, look, brownish and yellowish discharge. If it is connected to the period from the start or from the end, it has the same rulings as the period itself. Again, brownish, yellowish discharge. If it is connected to the hayd at the start or at the end, it has the same rulings as hayd. So, for example, the first days of the hayd, the woman says, I'm experiencing brownish discharge, yellowish discharge, and then the blood starts. We say this is part of hayd. Since it came at the time of hayd, it is considered part of the hayd. طيب, At the end of the hayd, the blood stopped, but now after the blood directly, I did not wait 24 hours directly, again the brownish discharge, yellowish discharge, it is considered part of the hayd. It is considered part of the hayd. So the general rule here, brownish discharge, yellowish discharge, if it's connected to the hayd directly, if either it's the start of the hayd or the end of the hayd, it is considered part of the hayd. But here's the tricky part. What if she have seen purity? What purity, as we will discuss, it's either dryness, complete dryness, or white discharge. If any of the two signs, she see, of course, complete dryness for 24 hours, then she's considered pure. Now, what happens is that the woman, her period is 7 days. 7 days, at the end of the 7th day, alhamdulillah, the blood finished, there's no discharge, and I got my purity, 24 hours purity, and then after the 24 hours purity, the sister says, I find brownish discharge. Yeah, we say this has no rulings. This has no rulings. As the companions used to say, is it Salama? That she used to say that we used to consider the brownish discharge after purity as nothing. So if purity occurs, she is sure of the purity. After 1 day, 2 days, she sees this discharge, it has no ruling. It has no ruling. It does not affect. Now here's the problem. Differentiating between blood and this discharge. If it's not blood, it's this discharge after purity, then definitely this is not hayd. Do not worry about it. It doesn't have the rulings of hayd. Another matter here is, okay, so this sister has the norm 7 days. 1 month, or this girl, she has the hayd for 7 days. On a certain month, now this hayd is 9 days. So there are 2 extra days. Are they connected? Yes, they are connected. Is it blood? Yes, it's blood. But what do we do now? It is normal for the period to increase certain days. At certain months, it might increase 1 or 2 days. This is due to stress, due to external factors. But it has many, subhanAllah, or an imbalance in hormones, so many things. But it's normal. It is normal. So having the period increasing by 1 or 2 days, this is normal. No problem. It has the same rulings for hayd. You do not say, my norm, the sister says, my norm is 7 days, khalas, after 7 days I do ghusl and I do not consider. No. If it's connected and it's 1 or 2 days, it is part of the hayd. It happens. It happens. So these 2 days, she does not pray, she does not fast, but it has the rulings of hayd until she sees purity. Now, if after the period ends, and she sees this blood, and now she is saying, no, but this blood is abnormal. It's continuing with me 5 days, but the characteristics of this blood is not of that of the period blood. It is different. So here there's something else. So it's not the period blood, it is something else. And this abnormal blood will take the rulings now, we'll talk about it. But that's why I'm saying it's very important for the sisters to be aware of what's happening, to be aware of the norm, to be aware of the rulings. How is purity achieved? Purity achieved in one of 2 things. Either complete dryness for 24 hours. Complete dryness as in, if she puts a cloth there, if she removes it, there's no sign of blood, no sign of any discharge. If this happens for 24 hours, then purity is achieved. Purity is achieved. If it happens, for example, 12 hours, she's pure for 12 hours, and then after 12 hours, she sees, this is the type of question. She says there are drops of blood. drops of blood, then you're still in your period. The blood ended, but after 12 hours I still see drops of blood. You see drops of blood, you are still in your period. A drop of blood is still part of the period. Okay? Then you have to wait until you see complete purity, or you see the white discharge. What is this white discharge? The sisters who get, this is not for everyone. This is for certain sisters. Usually they, at the end of the period, they see, it's called the al-qassatul bayda, or it's this white discharge. I don't know exactly how, but from what the description of the scholars, the sisters are aware of it. Like the sisters, they know this. It's either complete dryness, which most of the sisters, complete dryness. Some of them, al-qassatul bayda, which is the white discharge. And complete dryness for 24 hours. This is how we know that the period has ended. Now, when the period starts, as soon as the period starts, alhamdulillah, yarhamukallah. As soon as the period starts, it is prohibited for a woman to pray. If she was fasting, she breaks her fast. If the period started before performing tawaf, she has to stop. So the period affects so many things. What if the period, if she found the period, for example, she was fasting, after breaking the fast, after Maghrib Adhan, she was eating, she went to the toilet, she found the traces of blood. So she's confused. Did I reach purity? Did the blood start before the adhan? If it started before the adhan, khalas, this day of fasting, you have to redo it again. If the blood occurred after adhan, then alhamdulillah, this fasting, this day is secured. We say you attribute the blood to the latter of the two times. So, which means if you found the blood after adhan, you assume that it started after adhan. This is the ruling. So if after adhan she found the blood and she's confused, did it come after the adhan or before? You assume that it started after adhan, and that fasting is protected. Yes.
Are these discharges brown, red, or white? Are they najis or not?
Najis. So this is, now we're in periods, you're unable to ask tricky questions. You're unable to ask tricky questions. What is prohibited? Okay, first of all, so after the woman sees purity, she has seen dryness, complete dryness, or the white discharge. Can she go pray directly?
I think she has to wait 24 hours.
لا خلاص, she waited 24 hours, خلاص, it's complete. After ghusl, After ghusl. Very important. After ghusl, she, just like a person janaba, she cannot pray until she performs ghusl. Now, this is the case for prayer and for ihram. But what about fasting? Definitely you've been asked this question 100 times. At night you're waking, is my period? Yes, sister, yes, khalas. Husbands, khalas, we know this. Yes, if the period ended, and then adhan fajr came, and it said, well, I started fasting, I didn't do ghusl, it's okay. Fasting, yes, the woman can start her fasting even if she still did not perform ghusl. But if the period was still there after the day started, so after Fajr Adhan, it stayed for 1 hour and then it stopped and she knew that this is the end of her period, then we say here that this day she cannot fast because she has to fast from the start of the day. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. Woman, the prayer, she does not need to make up the prayer. She needs to make up the obligatory fasts. The obligatory fasts only, and not the prayer. A woman asked Aisha radiallahu anha, said, how come the woman makes up fasting and she does not make up the prayers? She said, Aharuriyatun anti, are you from the Khawarij? Because the Khawarij from Harura, they were extreme. They used to do things even the religion did not command them to do. They used to make up prayer. So Aisha radiallahu anha said, at the time of the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hail used to come, we used to stop praying, and we used to make up the fasting and not the prayer. We used to make up the fasting and not the prayer.
What about reading Quran?
Yes, now we'll discuss this. Now, if the period starts, a woman is forbidden, it's prohibited on her to pray, to perform tawaf, to fast during the state of menstruation. And we said that the obligatory fasting, she needs to make it up and not the prayer. It is also forbidden on her to engage in intercourse until the period ends and the ghusl is done. So even intercourse, two things have to happen. Purity and the ghusl has to be done. And of course, regarding talaq, it is forbidden on the husband. This is very important. In talaq, I know to say, how are we discussing this ruling? No, it's very important. Who knows what is the sunnah way of performing talaq? Is there a sunnah way of performing talaq? Yes. If a Muslim wants to divorce his wife, when does he divorce her? Who knows?
After completing her period, right?
But no, let's say she's in a purity now. So this is incomplete, huh? After? Second cycle? Okay, incomplete answer. So if he divorces her while in her period, it's considered an innovative divorce, talaqun bid'i. So a prohibited talaq. So what does it mean? What does it mean, talaqun bid'i? The talaq occurs, and it is counted. So if a man divorces his wife and she is in her period, she is considered divorced. And the count of talaq is counted. But it's a sin. It's considered a sin. Why? Because the sunnah, if a person wanted to do talaq, he has to divorce her in a purity that there was no intercourse in. It has to be a purity, and it also has to be no intercourse. This is for a woman, of course, after consummation. But a woman who is pregnant, there are no issues. A woman before consummation, so the marriage contract is done, but before consummation, regardless if she's in her period or not, the talaq, it's valid. It's not considered a prohibited talaq. But this is very important here. So, why did we mention? Yeah. So we said it is forbidden on the husband to perform talaq on his wife if she is in her period. If she is in her period. Now, of the things that are prohibited on a woman in her period, to enter the masjid and stay in it. So the question comes, Sheikh, I'm attending some classes. I'm in my period, but I don't want to miss out my classes. Do not enter the masjid. Do not enter the masjid. This is the opinion of the 4 imams. Do not enter the masjid. Don't take this matter lightly. Some sisters take it lightly. Or they have tahfeel. So she comes. I had one sister ask me, Sheikh, do I attend tahfeel? I said, no, you're in your period. How do you attend tahfeel? She said, no, but my teacher said it's okay. I said, well, call the awqaf. This is the opinion of the 4 imams. Don't take these matters lightly. Don't stay in the masjid. Don't stay in the masjid. Okay? And you can do it online, or she can give you some time online, but don't enter the masjid during your menses. Reciting Quran. Now, reciting Quran, inshallah, it is permissible. The actual recitation of the Quran. Now, who remembers the ruling of junub? A person in janaba, can he recite Quran? So you're asking a question?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your question? When? I didn't understand the question.
Saying that when a group of people traveling somewhere.
Traveling. Yeah, there is a need here. طيب, for you're talking about, for example, Umrah يعني? Okay, if they're traveling and by herself. No, this is the thing. يعني, this is something, for example, if she fears on herself or something like this, يعني, and she says, طيب. يعني, this is يعني, an exception. But usually the general rule is this. Yeah, they said for a need, she enters the masjid. And they give examples, for example, her child entered the masjid. And he's by himself. And she needs to get in. No, here he said you go in because this is an emergency. طيب, you have to go in, you need to do something, go do it. But I'm saying in general, the ruling is she cannot enter the masjid. Now who can tell me the ruling of reciting Quran while in a state of janaba? Think carefully. Huh? Yes, exactly. He has to do ghusl before. طيب, how come a woman in janaba has to do ghusl, yet a woman in her the same woman in janaba, she has to do ghusl to recite Quran. We're not talking about holding the Quran, we're saying reciting Quran. Instead of janaba, we said it's better, or we said she should do ghusl to remove janaba so that she can recite Quran. طيب, in her menses, some madhabs, Hanbali madhab, they say she cannot recite Quran in her menses. But the Maliki madhab, Wallahu alam, yes, the Maliki madhab said no, it's permissible for her to recite Quran. Why? Because imagine, they said the period, it's the difference between hayd and janaba. Janaba, it's in your hand, you can just do ghusl and that's it. But the hayd, it's not in her hands. She has to eat the whole period, and this whole period she does not recite Quran. Not reciting Quran, if a person memorizes something, he'll lose it. They said that's why the Maliki madhab here is the strongest opinion, Wallahu alam, that it is permissible for her to recite Quran. But we move on to the next question, holding a mushaf. Just like, what did we say regarding a normal person, man, holding a mushaf? What did we say regarding this? Yes. Yes, he has to be in purity. So ghusl, or if a person was, even if he's not on janaba, he has to perform wudu, طيب, before holding the mushaf. Again, 4 imams. الأئمة الأربعة. قول جمهور. طيب, a woman in her menses, can she hold the mushaf? They said, again, if she wears gloves, طيب, بحائل, and there's something that covers her hands, they said it's okay. Or she can use an iPad or a phone. An iPad and a phone is not considered the mushaf. Using the phone, now this made it so much easier for the sisters. Using a phone or using the iPad, طيب, to recite Quran from there, خلاص, it's permissible. It's permissible, and alhamdulillah, it's not considered a mushaf. Now, what if a woman, can a woman be in a state of janaba and hayd at the same time? So we know the state of hayd, خلاص, we know. Janaba, we know. طيب, hayd and janaba at the same time, is this possible?
Yeah, Janaba.
Janaba and hayd at the same time.
Janaba means impurity, right?
Yes, ritual impurity.
Same thing. Menstrual cycle is also considered to be a janaba.
Yes, but no, janaba is different, menstrual cycle is different. But is it possible for both of them to be at the same time? Yes, if she sees a wet dream, for example, and she's in hayd. Now she is janaba and in her period. طيب, we said a woman in her period, she can recite Quran. But now she's janaba and in her period. They said she can do ghusl. If she does ghusl, she removes janaba, but the hayd stays. So she can do ghusl, she removes the janaba, but the hayd stays. So here she can recite Quran, she holds the mushaf. طيب. Now we're going to be talking about abnormal bleeding, which is istihada. Okay. I see many people. You want to continue, Ola? I wanted to finish all of this today. Continue? Yes? يلا بسم الله. طيب, istihada. What is istihada? First of all, the hadith عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت جاءت فاطمة بنت أبي حبيش إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت يا رسول الله إني امرأة أستحاض فلا أطهر أفأدع الصلاة. So this woman came to the Messenger of Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم saying, I have continuous bleeding. So she thought that this is her period, it's continuous, it doesn't end. She said, I'm leaving prayer, should I continue leaving prayer? He said عليه الصلاة والسلام لا إنما ذلك عرق. That is a result of a blood vessel, it's not the period. See, the Messenger of Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, that's not your period, that's a result of a blood vessel. طيب إنما ذلك عرق وليس بحيض فإذا أقبلت حيضتك فدعي الصلاة. So he gave her a general rule. If the hayd comes, you leave your prayer, and if it ends, you wash. طيب, you wash the blood and you pray. Okay, what does this mean? This woman is, she has this continuous bleeding the whole month. There's blood the whole month. Now, it cannot be that all of this blood is hayd, and it cannot be that all of this blood is not hayd. This is the problem. So it's not all hayd, and it's not all abnormal bleeding. So we have to know when, because hayd has its ruling. Abnormal bleeding, a woman can pray, and intercourse can occur, she can fast. Abnormal bleeding has no rulings. The rulings occur with hayd. With hayd. طيب. So here, what does she do? The Messenger of Muhammad ﷺ gave a general rule. Once the hayd comes, you leave the prayer. So how do we know if the hayd comes? It's one of two things. Either she can differentiate between hayd blood and abnormal blood, or she knows the norm, her norm. Her norm is 7 days. More than that is considered istihada. So it's one of these two things. It's one of these two things. طيب. For her to differentiate between normal blood and hayd blood, menstrual blood, there are differences. There are three differences. One regarding the color, one regarding the smell, one regarding the consistency. And also these are, there are slight differences. The smell, this is obvious. The hayd blood, they say that it has a very bad odor. Normal blood has no smell. Normal blood usually has no smell. طيب, the color. So this is in terms of smell. The color, they say the normal blood, the normal blood, and it's light. Hayd blood is black, and it tends to be dark, very dark. طيب, the consistency. Hayd blood is thick compared to normal blood. So these three things. Now, a woman, if she can differentiate, alhamdulillah, that's right. But even with this, it's not consistent. Sometimes she might not be able to differentiate. She might be saying it's all the same. Now this is part of the problem. She says it's all the same. Maybe she's not checking. She gives us a hard time. She says, sister, are you sure it's all the same? Yes, it's all the same. And we cannot say go check again. Khalas, she says all the same. And this is where the problem is. You're confused. It's all the same. And she says, I will come to the situation where she says it's all the same, and at the same time this woman, she has no norm. She said every month it's different, Sheikh. It's 7 days, but sometimes at the start of the month, sometimes at the... طيب, what do we do here? And she needs to pray, طيب. She needs to know when does the period end. We'll come to this situation now. So this is, as we mentioned, if this blood is most of the month, definitely it's istihada. It's not hayd blood. Like, what are the rulings of istihada? So if a woman has continuous abnormal bleeding, we're not talking about 1 or 2 days. What did we say regarding 1 or 2 days extra? And it is exactly the same as hayd blood. What did we say regarding this?
It's normal.
No, it's hayd blood. That's normal. Having 1 or 2 days more, that's normal. She leaves prayer, she leaves fasting until she sees purity. This is normal. طيب. So then if it's abnormal bleeding, and it's not just 1 or 2, it's most of the month, then she needs to consider, we said, some of them said she needs to consider her norm. She cannot tell the difference. But خلاص, she acts on her norm. What's the norm? She says, my norm is the first 6 days. خلاص, consider these first 6 days as your hayd. After that, you wash, and خلاص, you pray and you fast. طيب. if she has no consistent norm, and she doesn't have a norm, but she's able to differentiate. Aslan, if she's able to differentiate, wallahu alam, this is the strongest thing to khalas. If she can differentiate, then alhamdulillah, life is easy. Leave this abnormal blood and just khalas, it's not part of your period. طيب, if the period, she can tell the period ended, this is my norm, and the period ended, now the blood is different, it's not hayd. She can tell, say khalas, leave. If it's not hayd, then fast and pray. Now, you might be saying, Sheikh, she cannot be 100% sure. Yes, she cannot be 100% sure. Many of the rulings are not 100%. They are based on probable doubt. غَلَبَةُ الظَّنِّ. And she thinks, no, I feel that this is, and based on my, if I'm making the, it's probably not hayd. Then khalas, you act on this. And the sight of Allah, you're pardoned. طيب. Because some of these things you can never be 100%. طيب. Now, so we said if she has a norm and she cannot tell the difference, she acts on the norm. If she can't tell the difference and she does not have the norm, khalas, she tells the difference. طيب. What if she has both? She can tell the difference and she also has a fixed norm. In this case, the stronger thing is, as we mentioned, if she can tell the difference, khalas. This is the easier. This is the opinion of the Shafi'i. The Hanbali madhab, our madhab, she acts on the norm. But, yani, alhamdulillah, she can use both. And if it happens that the norm ended, and also the consistency ended, khalas. She can tell this, the blood changed, alhamdulillah, this is even better and better. She is sure now. She is 90% sure that this is not hayd blood. But the problem is that, Sheikh, I don't have a norm. And Sheikh, I cannot tell the difference. What do I do? In this case, we say you act on the norm of the people around you, your sisters, your family, your mother. The norm there, what is the norm? What is their norm? Their norm is, for example, 6 days at the start of the month. Khalas, you act on this. You act on this. طيب, this is the matter that we want to discuss. You act on this. Now this ruling is very important. Many people struggle from incontinence, when sometimes they find droplets of urine, they cannot control, even if they do wudu, and then they walk to the masjid, they find droplets of urine. What do they do here? This is very important. Here, this person, he has the same rulings as istihada. So he does wudu at the start of the prayer time. So dhuhr adhan started, you do wudu. طيب, Sheikh, but say, I'm sure I've seen droplets, and this happens every prayer. We say, relax. You made your wudu, you came to the masjid, this has no ruling, because this aslan this was abnormal. The urine, when it left your organ, it left in an abnormal way. It's not the normal way. You didn't go to the toilet. This is the ruling of istihada. So this person, in this case, he doesn't need to go do wudu. Otherwise, he'll keep doing 3-4 times wudu in the same period. Nobody says this. So anyway, the jumhur, the majority, they say as soon as the prayer time enters, if you made one wudu, then this does not harm you. You can go and pray. But they say as soon as the prayer time ends, so adhan asr starts, you go and do wudu again. Now, let me tell you about this opinion that saves you a lot of time, and it's a strong opinion. It's the opinion of the Malikis regarding this specific matter. It's a very strong opinion, and it really helps you a lot, because sometimes it's not practical to do wudu at the start of prayer time. What do I mean? You walk from home, you did wudu at home, you went for Maghrib prayer, you came here, Maghrib adhan started, you go and do wudu. Based on the opinion of majority, you have to go do wudu. The Maliki says no. If this urine has or even gas, some people have gas. Okay, they pass gas all the time. They cannot control this. Same ruling. Yes. Same ruling. So this person passing gas or urine, they cannot control. They say that this does not break your wudu. This does not break your wudu until you go to the toilet itself. And then khalas. So even if the prayer time ends, this is the difference between the Malikis and the rest. They said even if the prayer time ends. So you did your wudu at home, and then you came here, Maghrib adhan started. you can go to the masjid and pray. No problem. Even if they were urine, no problem. No issues. Pray and have khushu' and don't worry about this. Even if you stayed in the masjid, until Isha time, you can do this. No problem. No problem. Given that you did not go to the toilet for a normal, using the toilet normally to relieve yourself. This, of course, you have to do. Other than this, any things that leave you without you aslan intending, this is it. Now, but there's an important ruling here. This is not for everyone. This is for a person who's struggling with this. It happens to you on a daily basis. Khalas, you have this rule. Not wallah, once it happened. This person, once it happened, and maybe this is just once, you don't get this ruling. But this is for a person who's really struggling with this. He has this issue. The same with istihada. A woman in istihada, continuous blood, she knows this is abnormal bleeding, same ruling. Just like when we said, does she have to do wudu the time of every prayer? We said, following the Maliki madhab, she only has to do prayer, she has to do wudu if she has relieved herself normally. Okay? If she relieved herself normally.
You have to clean before wudu, right? You have to clean before wudu.
Yes. For wudu you clean, yes. Because there'll be traces. But this also they said, okay, some people, they cannot keep on changing their underwear all the time. They said this is aslan pardoned. Because otherwise they'll change it 4 or 5 times. At the time of the companions, they definitely did not have aslan enough garments for themselves aslan. They used to wear half. So how is this? They said this is pardoned. This is pardoned, okay? If we said that the ruling is pardoned, then even this, the najasa from it is also pardoned. But of course, when you use the toilet, you have to wash. Not doing so is a major sin. There's a difference in the two. You get it, yeah? طيب. Now, the final thing here, postpartum bleeding. Similar rulings to haid, but let's just take these matters, inshallah, we'll end with this. Postpartum bleeding, what is it? What is it? It is blood that exits with, we're going to follow the Hanbali madhab here, with or after childbirth. Some scholars say, no. Postpartum bleeding is only after giving birth. But in reality, the final days, when the cramps starting to occur, she might get some bleeding. Okay, it happens, to everyone. Everyone we see this. When the cramps happen, sometimes there's bleeding with this. What is the ruling of this bleeding? If it is due to the cramps and it's close to the time of delivery, they said this bleeding has the same rulings as postpartum bleeding. So she leaves prayer here. She leaves prayer. This is based on the madhab, and it's a very strong opinion, because they said the blood here is due to giving birth. It is due to giving birth. Even if it's 1 or 2 days before, it is still connected. So here she leaves prayer. Even if she's fasting, khalas, she breaks her fast. Of course, once this bleeding occurs, it has the same ruling as hayd. No prayer, no fasting, no intercourse, khalas. It has the same rulings as hayd. Is there a limit for this? Now this issue, I struggled with this and many struggle with it. Postpartum bleeding, is there a limit for this? Many of the scholars say the limit is 40 days. 40 days. Some madhabs, like the Shafi'i madhab, say it's 60 days. So, don't be too strict. Even if it's after the 40 days, if the blood is continuous, same thing, she leaves the prayer, no problem. She might stop at 50, and purity, same thing, complete dryness. Similar to hayd, complete dryness. Even if it's more than 40, it's okay. More than 40, it's okay. Because wallah, I remember, we're in a situation, it's 40 days, 41 days, 42, 45, and we're asking scholar after scholar, he said, be patient until the blood ends. But it's now 55. Wait, be patient, it's okay. The other madhab is until 60. After 60, this is the limit. They said after 60, if it's after 60, khalas, she washes and she prays and fasts. 60 days. Until 60. That's the end limit. But between 40 and 50, between 40 and 60, and if she gets this, that's okay. Khalas, it's considered postpartum bleeding. Now, remember when we said yellow or brown discharge? It still applies to this. yellow and brown discharge still applies to postpartum bleeding. Similar, who remembers the rule? The ruling for brownish and yellowish discharge.
Also impure. Also impure.
Yes.
It's also impure.
Yeah, this is the who asked me about impure. We didn't mention this. What did you say regarding the rulings of this? I did not say near. I did not say after. Come on. If it's connected, it's big difference. If you say near, if there is a 1 day gap, it's near. But it has no ruling. You have to say connected. Big difference, night and day. So again, this is very important. We have to repeat it. No, you'll go home. You'll get the questions. You'll see. Let 30 days pass. You see, wallahi, the Sheikh mentioned this. You'll see. Brown and yellowish discharge connected to the period, whether it's the start or the end, same ruling as the period. By postpartum bleeding, brownish and yellowish discharge connected to the postpartum bleeding. What is it? Same ruling? Same ruling, yes. It cannot be, I don't know, can it happen before? Apparently in postpartum bleeding, it's always after. But خلاص. ما كنا نعد الصفرة والكدرة شيء بعد الطهر شيئا. So the companions here, they said the sufra, yellowish and brownish discharge after purity is not considered anything. So again we repeat, the period ended, she saw purity. After 24 hours she sees this brownish discharge, we say this has no ruling, no problem. So, but I see it, no problem. We studied خلاص. As Atiyya said, that it has no rulings after purity. Okay? This, memorize it. طيب. Now, final matter regarding postpartum bleeding. We said that bleeding that occurs 1, 2 days or 3 days before giving birth, if there were cramps, and definitely this blood is attributed to the delivery, giving birth, then it has the same ruling. طيب, what about miscarriage? This is also common. Miscarriage, you have to know the number of days. If it's below 40, no rulings. خلاص. There is no way that the formation occurred. Before 40 days, there are no issues. It's considered a piece of meat, and even if there's bleeding, it's normal bleeding. She does not leave prayer. She does not leave fasting. طيب. Before 80 days, before 80 days, sometimes, very rare before 80, that you might see formation. What is formation? You might see a hand, an eye sometimes, a mouth. If any of this is visible, then it has the same rulings as birth, as a full child. But when does this occur? The question is, when does this occur? Most of the time, it occurs after 80. Most of the times, of course, after. Rarely it occurs before 80. But before 40, definitely never. But before 80, sometimes, rarely. But usually it's after 80 days. طيب. So if this occurs, if formation does occur, then it has the same ruling, the bleeding that occurs, it has the same ruling as postpartum bleeding. Okay, so directly, if it's less than 80, you don't worry. You say no, even if there is bleeding, she does not leave prayer, she does not leave fasting. If it's after 80 days and there's formation, then she leaves prayer, she leaves fasting, and she waits until she's pure. But she says, this is miscarriage, I didn't give birth. How can you say postpartum bleeding? It takes the same rulings as postpartum bleeding. Even if a woman, even all the rulings of birth will take place. And we all know that a woman who's divorced, if she's pregnant, when does her iddah waiting period end? After giving birth. Even if it was 1 day, she was divorced yesterday, she gave birth, خلاص her iddah ends. طيب, her husband passed away. Her husband passed away. طيب, and she was pregnant. She gave birth next day. Her waiting period ends? Yes, ends also. I'm telling you, it ends. I am telling you, I'm not asking. It ends, huh? So the iddah for a widow who her husband passed away, if she was pregnant, this is the strongest one. Giving birth, all the iddahs end. All the iddas, iddah of marriage, iddah of death of the husband, passing away, all the iddas end with giving birth. That's why I'm saying so many rulings are regarding this. So if formation occurs after 80 days, all these rulings apply. If there's no formation, so that's before 80 days, no formation, none of these rulings apply. None of these rulings apply, okay? Alhamdulillah, with this we have ended the book of purification. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us and to give us, to aid us in acting on this knowledge. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to more knowledge and to aid us inshallah in completing this. With the will of Allah, next week, at the start, if anyone has any questions on matters of purity, we'll answer. Otherwise, we will start the book of prayer. Book of prayer requires definitely, and take it easy. There's a lot of revision. Book of prayer, khalas, imagine prayer, all the matters from adhan to pillars, conditions, obligations, types of prayers, prayer times, all of these details, inshallah, step by step, inshallah, we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make them blessed majlis. These majlis is blessed, and angels, descend, and we, inshallah, we all benefit, Ya Rabb. So, have this intention that, Ya Allah, I want to attend, I want to learn my religion, starting with the book of prayer. Alhamdulillah, I have learned new things in purity, and I want to learn new things in prayer. And you'll see how many people will benefit from you. Most of these things, with the will of Allah, if you master them, you'll see the questions people ask. You'll see many people confused. You'll be able to answer their questions. With this we will end. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير.